Hey, Kimberlee, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Oh, thank you, Kelly. I'm so excited to be back with you again and really was looking
Yeah.
forward to this.
Gosh, well, we got rave reviews the last time you were on the podcast when we recorded live at RE Plus. So thank you for doing that. And I'm really excited to dig in more into your work today and what you've been thinking about and working on.
Thank you. Yeah, me too.
Well, so let's jump in. I think you've been a pioneer in the renewable development for decades, and I really want to know what originally pulled you into this work and what is keeping you energized today with all the things that are happening. Tell us that background.
Well, I started because it was I went from law to law, so I was working in the legal department, and I remember my mentor kept saying, you have to come and work in development because that's where all the
Mm,
money is. And one of the engineers had said to me, I want to build something. And at that time, I couldn't really relate to the idea of building something. Through the years, I think that became one of the cornerstones for me was being able to impact communities and people in a positive way by being able to build something and
mm,
just the majestic sites, unbelievable sites. And I think also the innovation. Years ago, there were certain places and areas, oh, there'll never be wind turbines in, I don't know, Tennessee or some places. And of course, innovation has allowed things to happen. I saw a project that was developed in Central California not that long ago, and I thought they did it, because years ago, it was considered just such a tough area because of all the overlays. So I love the innovation. I think mainly though it's the people.
mm.
It's the people that I really through the years so many relationships, so many wonderful people, so many things to share, and I that really keeps me in it day to day and keeps me excited.
That's awesome. The people make such a difference. That's one of the coolest parts about our industry, is the people for sure.
Yeah,
Well, and TerraPro, it's just an amazing story. You guys have supported more than 24 gigawatts of projects over your lifetime. This amazing company that you've built. When you look at that body of work, like what trends and risk patterns stand out across successful projects? I think you have a really interesting visibility into that, because of how many projects you've touched. What are you seeing?
yeah, we really have. It's not uncommon for us to work in excess of 77 projects maybe in a year, and it's
Mhm.
growing, right? It's funny because sometimes I can have a call with a team and I can tell you or I can predict how successful they're going to be in a lot of
Mm,
respects. And what I've seen and what just continues to come up over projects and I think one of the places where we just end up contributing so much is making sure that there's communication. I'm surprised at the number of times that you have the design, the engineers, they're designing the project,
mhm.
and then we'll think to say, okay, let's have the engineer send us the design and then look at that in relation to the real estate. Some of these things, they seem like they should be intuitive, right?
Yeah.
But it's surprising how often that communication doesn't happen.
Mm,
Um, Years ago, when we worked with the engineers and they would design a right of way for us for transmission, it would be a straight line, right? Okay, the project's here, interconnections there, I'm just going to draw a straight line.
yeah.
We found out through the years that that wasn't always
That doesn't
successful.
work. There
And
could be
so,
things in the way.
so many things. And
So many
so
things.
that evolved into this really very intentional collaborative process where we would sit in the room and we'd look at the map together. And so I think you see it even happen with construction. Things happen in real time. Lines get moved, access roads get moved, location, panels get shifted. And that has to happen. But where the risk part falls is when that communication doesn't go back, because everything has to track. All of our rights have to track with the project. And so there's that 12 times rule. You have to keep saying, we need to make sure that we're talking. And so making sure that those mechanisms are in place for that communication is super important.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And, it's interesting because the right of way and those permitting issues can really delay projects and progress on those projects so quickly. And you see that all the time. What are some of the strategies, especially in the early stage, that you're seeing that's helping de-risk those transmission lines before capital is even committed to the project? Like, what strategies are you seeing that are successful?
I think, first of all, really looking and understanding, the landscape. Where are you trying to get point A to point B? What are some of the best routes, and having it really be collaborative. I think, when you look at the complexity of transmission lines, years ago, I had an attorney tell me, who was representing some landowners. He said, Kim, transmission is just not that sexy, It's not what we were hoping for, right?
True.
Especially if that's all that it is, right? If it's just transmission and it's not, solar projects win, So I think really taking the time up front to really look at your route and understand what your options are. You need to really have maybe several options. And, is there a way you can go within a public right of way, right? Is that an option for you? Really understanding, the makeup of the land. A lot of the projects are very rural. So you probably have more opportunities, but then you have different challenges there with access and different things. So it really takes some time and intentionality at the beginning on the design side.
Definitely. There's so many layers to that. I feel like I love that. Transmission is not sexy. But there's so many layers. I remember a project, working through some of the highway right-of-ways, right? And then you're dealing with State Department of Transportation. And like, there's so many layers to things that I don't think people appreciate, like how challenging it is. So
incredibly. And, years ago, one of the first tidal projects that I worked on was finalizing the tidal work for a 75-mile privately, constructed line, 2 counties. And back then, the cost for land was about $28 million, which in today's money would be like $100 million. Just for the land rights, and maybe even more, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. It's wild. Well, so as we look towards the future, with the growing load from data centers and electrification, transmission demand is definitely skyrocketing. So what emerging risks do you think the industry isn't ready for yet? What are we not prepared for that we're going to have to start working through?
I think when you look at a lot of this transmission, some of the companies are building these tremendously long transmission lines, right? Patterns, I think, is in excess of 500 miles or something. I don't know that all the transmission is going to be that long, but it's certainly going to be very complex. And I think, you mentioned some of the permitting challenges, and that's what happens, right? From county to county. I mean, we have a county right now where the requirements are different even within the county, within the county itself, depending upon where you're locating your improvements.
It's
And
crazy.
so if you grow that to a grand scale of a lot of these transmission lines that are going to be crossing county lines,
Multiple.
state lines, you know, I think that's where we just don't have the infrastructure in place yet to be able to normalize and have, you can't predict, right?
Mhm.
So being able to add some predictability to that, and I know it's been something that's been on, a lot of the talking points for years, but I think it's going to be amplified going forward because we know there's so many projects that are
Yeah.
ready to be built, and the gating item is going to be that collaboration for those projects.
It's it's going to be quite the hurdle to get through all of that. So I want to shift a little bit because you're so good at seeing all of these different layers, and that's what TerraPro is so great at, is helping people navigate through all those layers. And so one thing that people always comment about you that I hear all the time is how amazing you are at aligning stakeholders and getting everyone on the same page and helping people to see, like to see things kind of from other people's perspective and all of that. And so I want to know, like, what's your approach to building trust and alignment when everyone at the table has competing priorities? Because, the county person that you're talking to and the state person that you're talking to and the regulator, like everybody has different, all has different opinions. And so, you've definitely perfected this bringing folks together. How do you do that?
I think, first of all, reaching out and being willing to have the conversation. Early in the days when I was working, we were very stealth. And I think a lot of times in acquisition phase, you're very cautious as a developer. You want to protect, your part of the action or your part of the property. But I think now, really sitting down with people, listening to their concerns, and, on the early projects when we would have issues, the difference was engaging early, sharing, being willing to be transparent. And I think, really paying attention and being honest about what you can and cannot do. I mean, there's some things that people request, just can't do it. It's just not feasible.
Mm-hmm.
But I think doing what you can, I think a lot of people, if they're feeling heard and they know that you really care, just, taking the time to sit down with them. And we can accomplish a lot, remotely, but really sitting down with people eyeball to eyeball has made for me all the difference in my career.
I love that. There is something about that relationship that just really drives that trust.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think not making unrealistic promises. You can get in trouble where,
Yeah.
you start telling people, oh, we can please everybody or we can do
Yeah.
everything. We know that's not going to be the case. But I
I've
think,
been,
following up too, right?
yeah, yeah, definitely. I've been on the other side of developers' promises before, where I'm on the O&M operations and maintenance side after a site's been built, and then the landowner next door is like, "Hey, where are my rose bushes? The developer promised me they were going to pave my driveway for me. When are you paving that?" So.
Exactly. Right.
And
And
and those are good things to build trust, right? To, like, meet people in the middle, but there's a level of just integrity there too, to make sure you're really following through with those promises on the front end.
well, and I think that's, you asked me earlier about ways to mitigate risk. And,
Mm.
sometimes what happens too is groups are very compartmentalized and they only work on one
Yeah.
piece. One of the advantages for me is I had a chance to work and interface with construction.
Mhm.
So I knew what was happening real time.
Yeah.
And we did. We had a landowner who did not want transmission lines running diagonally across his property. Said, not a problem. We had the conversations with, the construction team, all that was in place. And I get this call. a month or two into construction, and he's like, Kim, I think they ran that transmission line diagonally across my property. And I
Oh
thought, oh
no.
gosh, no. And I called, the guy who was in charge in the field, and he's like, yep, we did it. And I was like, okay, well, we're gonna have to change it,
It's not gonna work.
So sometimes those things do happen, but the other piece is respecting each other and the disciplines, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we had a
Yeah.
really good collaboration, and if we made commitments to landowners that were reasonable, that could be taken care of, that could be accommodated, then we really tried to do that. And I think that built trust, because we know word spreads like wildfire.
Yeah.
And a lot of
Absolutely.
times, if you're out developing, you're going to develop a series of projects, right? You might do several phases. If you're out there in that first phase and you're not communicating with people and you're not being true to your commitments, that word spreads and it makes it so much harder to do your
Yeah.
job later. So how you respond to that is very important. Not ignoring it. You'd be surprised the number of times things just get ignored. It's not the way to build trust.
Not at all. Yeah. That's such good advice. Another thing that you always have great advice on, and I would be remiss to not ask you while I have your ear today. You've been such a champion for women in renewables. What's the biggest barrier you see for women trying to step into senior leadership today? And what's some of the advice that you would give women that are listening?
There was a time when I would speak just to the women. I think today I would speak to women and men, because what I see is that there's an interest, universally for how we can grow and create more leaders. And I think the most important thing that I've learned now versus maybe when I was coming up is that we've got to make sure that we have those alliances. We have to make sure that there's a conversation happening. We have to, both as leaders, be paying attention to the people that we can grow, that we can engage with, that we can encourage, that we can inspire, as well as if you're on the side of somebody that wants to be in a position to grow. So there has to be that reciprocity. There has to be people coming together to create those opportunities. So for women, I would say seek out those mentors, seek out, build those alliances, make sure that your network is awesome women and men that can help you together to grow, because it's really got to be collaborative. As women singularly, we're not going to get there without it being collaborative and bringing the men to the table. And I think similarly, as leaders, very important to identify those people, to have those conversations. Are you interested in advancing? Where do you see yourself? And then you can work together to formulate a plan. I try to have those conversations quarterly with my people, if I can. Where do you see yourself in a few years?
Yeah. I love that. It is such a collaborative effort. I honestly, personally, I feel like success I've had stepping into leadership roles have been because of amazing men that have had my back or have been great partners to me and given me great, I've worked for some amazing people that have always given me great opportunities and, valued me and what I brought to the table. So I think that's amazing advice. I love that. Well, I'm going to put you on the spot with a question that I did not pre-read you in on. So don't be mad at me.
I'm ready.
I want to know, going into 26, so, Thanksgiving's passed, we're heading into the holidays, and then, kind of that fresh new year. what are you thinking about? How are you going to spend your time in December? Like, what are you doing to set yourself up for success next year? Anything, any like routines or rhythms or things that you do?
I am really focusing on how we can grow leaders in our business. That's one of the things that I want to be even more intentional about next year
Mm-hmm.
is looking for opportunities, providing people with opportunities to be able to show me. And what I do, Kelly, is I look for little kernels. I look for that, that person to
Mm-hmm.
kind of demonstrate on calls, even if it's just, a little bit here and there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for those kernels that I can then go and say, hey, let's work on growing that. Where do you want to be? And let's work together to create that. That's really important to me.
Yeah.
The other thing that I've been really paying attention to is really gratitude. As leaders, we need to set the stage. We need to model what gratitude looks like. And it's a lot of different ways. But it's intentional. And we're now, I was better at it before. I kind of got lax. I need to get back to doing that, to really recognize
Mm-hmm.
people's contributions. And I think there's that tendency to always be focused on the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And that's certainly me, right?
Yeah.
Yay, okay, woo, let's move on.
Yeah.
I think as a team, we're trying to look for ways to be more intentional with our team, to have everyone be a part of the success. And I think that's the other thing that's important to me.
Mm-hmm.
When we have a success across the board, it's always because as a team, people are working together.
Yeah.
Because to me, the sale only starts at the beginning. It only starts when you say, okay, yay, we have the scope, we're going to go. It's the whole process and how we show up. And
Mm-hmm.
I want that to be the best customer journey that it can be. So and part of that is gratitude. It's recognizing the small things, because the small things matter, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And making sure that people know that I see them, we recognize them. Those are some of the things that I'm really going into next year to be very purposeful and intentional about.
I love that. There's so many good nuggets there. There's some great confirmation for me on where my head's been at too. I love that. Oh my goodness. Well, Kimberlee, thank you so much for your time. I always learn a lot from you and get such good perspective. So thank you for sharing with us. And thank you for always being so open to the industry. And follow Kimberlee on LinkedIn if you aren't already. Like, I get so much joy. I love it. If I'm having a bad day, she's definitely someone's feed that I'm going to go look at to get encouragement. So thank you for being such a bright light in our industry. I really appreciate you.
Oh, thank you, Kelly. This is just such a joy to be here. And it's awesome for me to be able to share this. And, my hope is that, we can really build an industry where these things are evident across the board. And I think we have the makings of so many great people for that to happen. So I so appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.